Okay, well now we're going to get into kind of some tips on dating. On just having, these are, I guess, more smaller points as far as the having a successful dating experience. And first, I actually want to talk about recognizing the differences between men and women. Now, you know, it's funny because the way that I was raised growing up is I was kind of hardcore women's lib, so I came up from that point of view like there shouldn't be any differences between men and women, and I tried to make that work for most of my life, and so it's been really interesting for me to be more aware and acknowledging that there are some differences between men and women. But I think one of the things that I'm fascinated by actually is that if you ever tried to describe like what the characteristics of a man was, you know, of men, or what the characteristics of women are, we would come up with certain things, like maybe we'd think women, you know, are more relational and they like to talk, and men, you know, are more doers or perform, you know, like whatever characteristics that you think of for a man, there are some women that have those strong characteristics and vice versa. So it's one of those things that I just enjoy about God, about how God doesn't actually deal with a lot of absolutes as far as black and whites. And I think that keeps us in a place of being humble and growing and open to God and hearing from God in things. But yet at the same time, we can't, you know, it's hard to ignore that there are actually some differences. And I think the Bible speaks in relationship to some of these differences, specifically when we're thinking about marriage. One of the better known verses of Scripture about marriage that used to bother me. There was a time that, you know, and I think some people have not really understood how to look at this verse, where it talks about the husband being the head of the wife. And sometimes when you think of that concept, it kind of sounds like the husband's the boss, the ruler, like you get a picture almost of the man being my way or the highway, you know, kind of thing. But that word, actually the Greek word for head in that verse is kephale. And kephale is the Greek word that represents the one that goes first, like, into battle. It would be the one that charges ahead to be the first one into battle, which I really think is very representative of something that's very special as far as how men are built, and how it relates to, you know, it's kind of interesting when you think about a head and, you know, the head and the body relationship, is that they actually have a relationship where the head sometimes makes the decisions and sometimes your body makes the decisions. You know, it's really funny. I mean, I've had times where something hurts and my body was telling me, didn't matter what my head was telling me that we were going to do, the body was like, not doing that. So even though you could look at that verse in a way that's more where it's not equal, I don't believe at all that the Bible's saying that, because it contradicts other verses of Scripture where it talks about the equality of men and women in the Bible. So I really believe that when that illustration actually goes towards something that's very special about the difference in how men are built and how women are built. This came up actually recently when I was working, I teach acting, and I was working with some of my actors on a scene for a class, and it was a scene about Hurricane Katrina, about how it was a scene about a woman who left her husband at the Superdome, and she left and he wound up dying, and she was regretting that. She was saying, I should have stayed there, I shouldn't have left him at the Superdome. Well, I gave the scene and I assigned that role of the woman to men and women both, saying that they could both, you know, work on the woman's role. And the men, it was so funny, when I got to class, looked at me like I was insane. They were looking at me going, what man would leave his wife and get on the bus and leave his wife at the Superdome? And I sat there and going, wow. Honestly, it made me so moved by something that's really incredible that I don't think we think about, that's just built in what men are. You know, there's something that's amazing and special about who men are that make them want to be like the heroes. You know, that it would be unthinkable for a man really to like leave his wife to go die in the Superdome, but yet for women would. You know, if the man said, you go honey and get on the bus, and you know the woman might be reluctant, but the woman would do it, where the, you know, like the woman's not going to say to the man, you go on the bus and leave me behind to survive. So there's something that's really very amazing and special about something in how men are built to be those like to be the knight in shining armor, to be heroic, to be strong, to be the one that charges into the battle first. And so I think when you think about the differences of men and women and how that relates in dating, you can have a lot of fun if you respect and enjoy that. There's a couple of books that actually I think are very good at articulating this. One is a book that it's sort of a book written for men called Wild at Heart, and it talks about you know, some of the desires of every man, you know, like going on, you know, having an adventure to go on, a battle to fight, and a beauty to rescue. That's sort of the underlying desire of what lives in a man's heart. And so, and then it talks about women's desire, which is, am I worth fighting for? Will you fight for me? Am I worth fighting for? And I think every woman can relate to having that desire, you know, to having the desire of wanting to be the, you know, the woman that is rescued, you know, wanting to be the beauty to rescue, you know. So there's something about those kind of old school illustrations that really ring true, and that you can really enjoy and experience, you know, like allowing, if you're a woman, allowing a man to be a man, you know, or for a man, you know, enjoying letting a woman be a woman. And playing those roles, enjoying, if you're a woman, enjoying your femininity, or if you're a man, enjoying your masculinity, or respecting that in one another, that can come up in dating. Another, overall, this kind of illustrates, I think, in the way that we typically see it play out in a dating relationship, is allowing men to be the pursuers. There's something about that, and it talks about in Wild at Heart, and also in another book, Mars and Venus on a Date, talks about this. You know, talks about the desire that men like to pursue, and specifically that men really only value women that they have to pursue. That women are only truly valued if it's something that they have to pursue and fight for. Now, what's interesting is that it talks about in Mars and Venus that the role of a woman is actually to be really receptive. It doesn't work to play hard to get. That's not, you know, that's not it at all. But to be like, to give him the go signal, to tell him he's doing great. You're doing great. Keep on coming. You know, like if the guy calls to, for instance, say, you know, like a way, that would be a way for a man to be the pursuer, is for the man to like call the woman. Men typically are just not big fans of women calling them all the time. You know, it just is not. You know, you know, they want a woman that they feel is valuable, that they have to sort of fight for a little bit. But at the same time, you know, the women, its, you know, role is to be really receptive, to be appreciative of their efforts, to appreciate their valor and their, you know, masculinity, and to tell them how great they're doing. You know, like I remember it actually came up in my relationship with Adam when we were first dating. And it's still, what's really funny is I've been thinking about this, we still interact this way. We've been married 8 years, and there's still a lot that he's still very much like wanting to be that kafale, the guy that goes in, you know, first into battle. And, you know, he responds the best when I tell him how great he's doing. Like if I start being critical or demanding, doesn't work so successfully. But when I tell him, oh, honey, I just love when you get me flowers, or, you know, when he opens the door, he still opens the door for me, and we've been married 8 years, and I still make a big fuss every time he does it. I'm like, thanks, honey, and, you know, it's just like, you know, enjoying those kind of things. But when we first started dating, he called me, and then he'd said at the end of the conversation, he was like, you know, he said, oh, you can call me, you know. And I said, you know, I don't call boys. You can call me, though. So he's like, oh. So the next day he called, and I knew he was going to call. So it's just like, you know, and so it was great. It was just sort of like, so I told him I was like, that I was really excited to hear from him, and that I was glad he called, you know, to let him know that I was really excited for the initiative that he was taking, that I was really valuing that and validating that. So this is kind of some of the fun kind of dynamic that if you think about this as far as the roles of what, you know, that women like to be pursued and like to feel like they're worth fighting for, but men also like have the desire of wanting that to be validated, that they are, you know, strong and masculine and heroic and doing great, and that you love that they planned the date, you know, where that's another thing men can take the initiative in, is doing things like, you know, planning the dates, you know, and taking that initiative. And so it's kind of exciting, you know, as a woman, you want to validate that they took that effort, not criticize them for the stupid, you know, why did you take me here? I don't like bowling, you know, or whatever, you know, but just tell them about how great it is that they put the heart and thought into it, you know, and find, you know, so that, because the idea is that it really works, and even in a marriage, to tell them, you know, why they're, you know, how they're making you happy, you know, and to be receptive, you know, and to be enthusiastic and open and willing, and not defensive or walled up or whatever kind of thing. So these are just sort of some things as far as the whole male-female thing. Oh, another thing. You know, it's funny because it took me forever to get this because, again, coming from my women's lib thing, when I started dating, it was just really hard. It was hard for me to let a guy pick up a check. Like, it was just like, and I feel like it was so funny because I've really noticed even the difference with that was just like, oh, I just thought that was terrible. And guys would be like horrified that I was like trying to pick up the check, and I was like, I'm thinking I'm being nice, and they're not. They're totally offended that I'm sitting there trying to battle for the check, you know. Instead, it's just like I was amazed at, I was just shocked at how much, you know, of a difference it made when I just was just appreciative and valued, you know, how lovely it was for them to take me someplace, you know. And I got like, it was shocking, the difference as far as the reaction and the response that I got when I really just kind of surrendered to it. Plus, I had fun. They had fun. I had fun. It's a great dynamic. If you just kind of roll with it and enjoy it, it can be a lot of fun. It is really the one place especially that you get to really enjoy the difference as far as the masculine and the feminine goes. Now, I want to go to Matthew 7:6, because in this, what we want to acknowledge is that we want to make sure that we are valued in both places. Whether, you know, I know that sometimes, well, let's take a look actually. It's kind of in Matthew 7 and verse 6. It's a famous, famous verse of Scripture. Even people that aren't Christians quote this all the time. It says, "Do not give the dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and then turn and tear you to pieces." This is a powerful verse when it comes to dating. I mean, think about the visual here. It's hilarious. You know, here's a pig. Can you imagine? You know, it's really, talk about making a point. Pearls, you know, beautiful, exquisite jewelry, expensive, valued, cherished. And could you imagine how ridiculous it is for somebody to go, here you go, and put a little strand of pearls around the pig? You know, it just, you know how ridiculous. Like, why would you give pearls to a pig? A pig does not know pearls. The pig cannot recognize pearls. So it says not only will it, you know, it'll probably trample all over it and then rip you to pieces for giving them pearls. This is really a big deal when it comes to dating. This is a very significant thing for men and for women both. Is like, for men, you don't want to fight for a woman that's not receptive and appreciative of your fighting. You know, why go to battle for some woman that wants bad boys? You know, if a woman wants bad boys, they're the wrong women. Seriously, they're women that don't value what's valuable, you know, and can't see that. Normally the reason that women do that is because there's places in them that are hurting and broken that they're acting out from. But you don't want to put yourself in a position that you are putting all that's wonderful about you as a man, you know, and your valor and your heroism before somebody that has no clue and can't value that, and they'd rather be mistreated, you know? Like, it's just like putting pearls before swine. Same thing with women as far as, you know, giving of yourselves, you know, to men that don't get you, that don't value who you are, or men that want to, you know, be in a place that are not respectful of you, or men that wouldn't want to fight for you. You don't want a man that's not willing to call you. Like even the shyest man, if he likes somebody, will figure out how to make a phone call. I've seen it. Like, you know, it's not, you can't give him that, oh, well, maybe he's too shy, I better call him, or something like that. If they like you enough, and you want to be a woman that's worth them stepping up, you know, worth that they muster up, because it's risky, you know, like in that dynamic for men to step out and to take the initiative, you know, and so as a woman, you want to honor the risk that they're taking by validating that and being appreciative and telling them how awesome that is, you know, and how grateful you are. And so anyway, but not be like pursuing, you know, people that don't value you is like huge. and being open. I think that sometimes, as far as women go, that sometimes they feel there's fears as far as being receptive. You go, like, of thinking, well, if I'm too nice, the guy will take advantage of me or something like that. You know what? Valuing somebody doesn't set you up for being taken advantage of. You can value somebody, and again, this comes to the boundaries that we talked about. You can give somebody value and validate them, but still have boundaries as far as what you're going to allow and not allow. So you're not giving up your power to tell somebody how much you appreciate them, or to be open and receptive. Now that's different than, again, if you're a woman, the idea is to be receptive and appreciative and not chasing or stalking some guy. So stalking doesn't work for either side. No stalking. Okay. So anyway, so I just want to kind of go over, these are just like smaller things as far as how to be successful in dating. One of the things as far as conversation goes is you want to, for either person, you want to not dominate conversation. Don't talk more than 60% of the time. That seems obvious, but to be aware, of who's doing the majority of the talking, and you like to keep it more balanced where, if the other person's not talking, maybe to seek them out and ask questions and that kind of thing. You don't want to, boss somebody around, tell them what to do on a date. Bragging never works very well. Boasting, never an attractive quality to say anything that's self-promoting. The Bible says, let other lips praise you. So, if you want to be praised, allow other people to praise you. So, also one of the things, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Don't open up too fast. I'll tell you one thing that, I was on a date, and I was in this new, testing out being open and truthful and that kind of thing. Oh my God, this is so bad. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm on the date with somebody, and they were doing all the talking. It was one of those things that they were doing all the talking, and then they were like, wow, you're so interesting, you're so mysterious. And because I wasn't talking, I was listening. And it said, oh, tell me about you. And so, oh God, this is so embarrassing. So I told them I was sexually abused when I was a kid. So this is it didn't go over that well. And, I was trying to be, I was confused. I was working through things, as far as trying to be open about myself and who I am. But there's such a thing, early stages of the relationship, of TMI, too much information. So you want to, you want to respect the stage of getting to know somebody, that you definitely don't want to be dishonest in any way, but there's also something where it's inappropriate at the beginning to share too much of your life, because what happens, which I didn't understand, is when I unloaded that gem on the other person, is that they didn't know what to do with that. Now, I was fine with it because this is something that I've grieved, I've spent time talking about, so I'm really open about it, and everybody that knows me knows that that's actually, a part of my history. But they didn't know me well enough, so for them it felt like I think they probably got the idea that they were supposed to do something with that, or that they felt like, oh my God, I'm supposed to take care of, probably maybe they had to take care of me, or maybe I had, it just was like they didn't know, how I was relating to it or anything else. So I've done some really goofy things, but anyway, you learn these things, and you learn a lot of this stuff by making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes out there. Practice stuff, and you'll find out along the way by doing goofy things. Yeah. Don't check other people out while you're on a date. I'm just saying. So, do act warm and friendly. Don't try to be hard or standoffish. Again, you don't get points for being, somehow we think that, again, don't fool being standoffish for boundaries. Being hard, being uncaring, being standoffish is not a boundary at all. That's a wall. So, so you can be warm, but still have boundaries. You want to be safe, particularly, women obviously, don't meet strangers or in places without other people there, and, you want to make sure you meet people you don't know in public places. Don't ask dates to your house unless you know them for a while. And Also, like, part of this is you really need to be in a place where you're meeting people. You know, it really helps to be, in sales we used to say, circulate among the buyers. So you want to put yourself in situations where you can meet people, whether it's in, you know, clubs or social environments, or even honestly internet dating. I did internet dating when I was single, and it was great. It was just a great experience for me to practice some of these skills and to get to know people. Honestly, I learned so much by, and I met some actually really wonderful people. If you're safe, then it really is a great avenue for being able to meet a lot of people where maybe in your own lifestyle you're not meeting tons of people. So it's great to have the experience in dating, as we talked about earlier in the seminar, that there is a lot of value in casual dating. It's not like you're, you know, like you can date people that aren't Christians, you know. It's a great experience just to get to know people. You date for the sake of the dating. That's valuable enough, and in the experience of how to relate, how to communicate, enjoying, you know, another person's time, learning how to be a man, learning how to be a woman, how that, you know, how to communicate all those things. So those are some things as far as just opening up the possibilities there. And then another thing that I want to talk about is taking care of yourself physically is really an important thing that you can't, I think, for some reason a lot of people minimize that or don't give that value, but a lot of romantic attraction has to do with being physically attracted to somebody. So, you know, what you want to do is be the best that you can be at taking care of yourself. You know, it's going to make a difference as far as who's attracted to you in, you know, in diet, exercise, you know, watching that you're in shape and watching your weight, watching that you're healthy for your skin. You know, the things that you eat affect your skin and your hair and other things. So it's like, it's really important to take really good care of yourself, and not just like diet and exercise, and get some help on this. If you need help, it's an important thing, because if you want to be out there, you know, finding that right one, you want to be somebody that is attractive, you know, that is attracting people. And so you want to be the very best version of yourself you can be. We've spent this entire seminar talking about growth and being attractive on the inside, but really you need to take care of yourself physically on the outside. It's, you know, like we all have our shortcomings. We all have our physical, you know, places that aren't, you know, we got fat in places we don't want to have fat or whatever, you know. Like, we've all got that. But so it's not about being perfect. It's about really doing the best that you can at taking care of yourself. You know, and again, of honoring yourself and honoring somebody else. Even it helps to get advice on fashion if you don't know anything about clothes. It's really good to get friends' advice on that, because there's a lot as far as putting your best foot forward and being attractive, because, come on, don't you want somebody you're attracted to? I mean, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't? You don't care at all about what somebody looks like. Raise your hand. Yeah, sure. No hands up there. Everybody cares about being physically attracted to somebody. So if you care about it, everybody else cares about it too. So the idea, it's natural. Physical attraction is in the mix. You know, it's stupid to pretend it's not, you know, because it's a reality. So there's going to be limits on people that you're attracted to. You don't want to be so narrow about who you're attracted to, where you will only date somebody that's, you know, got, you know, blonde hair and, you know, whatever. You know, like, you know, you don't want to be that narrow. But the reality is that there's a certain, you know, even with some flexibility, you're not going to be attracted to every person out there. So the idea is it really does make a difference of taking care of yourself physically. And so that's a huge thing as far as opening doors to meeting people, is putting your best foot forward. And even in clothing. Clothing can actually make a big difference. And so if you're not aware and you're not, you know, I've asked for help. I don't, honestly, that's so not my bag. I'm so not a girl's girl. I know nothing about hair, makeup, clothes. It's just like one of my worst things ever. But the thing is like, I've asked my friends to help me on that, because it's the kind of thing that I'm just like, ugh, you know, dread even having to deal with stuff like that. But, you know, it's the kind of thing that that it's worth putting the effort in. You know, it's worth wanting to make yourself to be the very best package in every possible way, you know, that you can, and getting some help on that. Grooming, you know, keep yourself smelling good. You know, these you think that these are obvious, but not always. So it's worth talking about, you know, as far as you know, all of these things. So overall, these are actually, you know, we've spent the entire seminar talking about, you know, dating in the context of preparing yourself for dating, when you're ready to date. We've talked about, you know, who you should date and finding the right person and negotiable and non-negotiable characteristics. You know, we've talked about boundaries. We've talked about learning who you are before you date, the role of faith. We talked a lot about sex. And so all of these things are going into helping you to be successful in this environment, including just this area of you know, just some of the finer things of how you can be to put your best foot forward on a date, and honoring the difference between men and women. Because the reality is that God totally is willing to be there to find you the person that you can be happily ever after. God is able. I know sometimes it feels like it could never happen. It's a needle in a haystack. That's why God has to be in the mix. If you looked at the senses of who would have all those qualities that you would like, you know, it would seem impossible, and it can seem impossible. But if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to do the learning, if you're willing to prepare yourself and to prepare your heart and to be the very best that you can be, and allow God in and allow other people in, God is absolutely able to get you to the place that you could find the love of your life one day. You know, and that's a dream come true. That's something almost nobody ever gets to experience in this entire life. They really don't. I mean, how many people, we've talked about this at the beginning of the seminar, how many people do you know that are happy, really, that have marriages where they're spending their life with the love of their life, with their soulmate, where they're close, where they're best friends, where they're still making love and having a great time 25 years later? How many couples do you know that are living that? It's few and far between, so it's worth the effort. It's worth being willing to pay your dues and to not be rushing into something and grabbing the first person and heading for the altar, but to take your time and to really take the steps and take the preparation, you know, to grow and to be the very person you can be, and then leave it to God. And God Almighty loves you and wants the best for you. And if this is a desire on your heart, He can bring that to pass if you are willing.
It's been really awesome to be able to, as a guy, pursue, because it totally puts you out on the edge and you have to risk, and it's actually really fun. And at the same time, it's really scary. Like, I remember on my first date with the girl I'm in with now, it was really incredibly awkward because I wanted to tell her how I felt, but I didn't know when to do it. And it's so funny because I knew what I was going to say, and as soon as I was about ready to say it, like, all of a sudden my mouth started getting really dry, and I had no moisture in my mouth, and it was like really impossible to talk all of a sudden, and I didn't know what to say. And the great thing was that what was romantic about it wasn't how good my skills were at saying what I was trying to say, or how good my hair looked, or how well I had combed it, or something, you know, something like really shallow. It didn't have anything to do with that. What was romantic is that I pursued her and I risked for her. And at that point, when I realized that she was not judging me based on just how I looked or anything like that, and she was really valuing like how much I cared for her and wanted to be with her, like, I got a lot of confidence, and I just started to become really comfortable with the idea that I'm really happy to pursue you right now. I'm excited. Like, I'm gonna continue this, even if it's scary and risky. And that's what makes it, I think, really romantic. And I think it's also really nice when a man is pursuing a woman, for her to give him lots of positive feedback, lots of like encouragement, to let him know, like, hey, I want you to keep coming, like, I want you to keep going, like, you're doing great, like, I love what you're doing. Because I know that from my point of view, like, I'm so willing to risk, but if there's no positive feedback, like, I'm going to stop right away. Because the last thing I want to do is be doing something that, like, this girl doesn't want to happen. The last thing I want. But I know that if she is interested and she gives me that kind of feedback, like, it's the most exciting thing there is. Like, that's romantic. Like, that's fun. Because I don't need to even be the smoothest guy. I just know I need to let you know that I'm interested, and you're going to feel completely loved, and like you're incredibly important and valuable. And that's the goal. That's the message I want to send. And so I think as a guy, pursuing is one of the most incredible things, and it's amazing.
I'm just happy that I know what my like values are and what I want, and that I have a choice in everything I do, and that so yeah, that's what I'm really excited about is learning what healthy relationships looks like and knowing that I want that healthy relationship.
I've gained a lot more hope. I've gained a lot of hope that God might open the door for me. Not that He's just going to bring a woman to my front doorstep, but that when that time comes where I might be ready to start dating again, that I'll be actually able to step out a little more and know that it's not just about throwing the dice or throwing the darts, but that there are things that I can look for, and it does. It gives me a lot of hope.
I've definitely have taken a stand before God, and I've made a lot of changes in my life. I'm not dating for a year now. I'm not having sex for a year, and I've noticed that it's really been a challenge for me. But it's been 5 months where I hadn't had sex. I haven't dated anybody, and it really feels good to know that I don't have to be loved by a man to make me feel good. I'm definitely loved by God and by Jesus Christ, and I've definitely known that they are there for me and they're fighting for me. And not only that, but I have healthy friends in my life and beautiful women who are also fighting for me, and knowing that they've all been there, or they've been in some situation as I am, and knowing that you don't have to have a man to love you. You don't have to have someone to be with. And I know there's going to be the right guy out there for me, and I'm preparing myself for him, and I'm preparing myself to make it special when I do meet him. And
my vision now of what I could possibly have in a relationship is something that I can catch, that I can actually have one day. And like I want to be like I want to be excited to come home and to have a wife one day. I want to be excited to come home and see her. I want her to be excited to see me. And I want that from like I want that in my first year of marriage. I want that in my 20th year of marriage, and I've seen it happen now. And um, and it's like I feel like if that's available out there, um, then I feel like why can't I have it?
I definitely have hope, and I definitely feel like this is not the end of like, I'm doomed forever. Like, I'm never ever going to find anybody, but I definitely have a lot of work to still do, and not finding my value in men. It's a huge one. And so, this is a constant struggle, but I see hope for my life, and letting God show me that I could be loved by others, by other women, by other men who don't have any intentions or agenda or anything, and I feel I could be me. And so it feels good, and I feel God is like letting me know that little by little, and letting me know that I'm not alone, and that people understand. And it's frustrating sometimes, but I definitely have hope, and I definitely feel blessed to be where I am at now.
I've always wanted, I had a really good dream my whole life. I think I've had a really big dream, which was having a good life. That's what I've always, like, it's kind of, dream is like changed, but it's always been like having the best life. What I thought was the best life. What I really thought was the best life I could have, that somebody could have. And I feel like now this is real. This is the best life that somebody can have. Waiting until you're married, being with one girl and her only being with you, and you only thinking about her and her only thinking about you, sexually that is. But Um, it feels good to say it. It feels good to have examples. It feels good to know that's what God wants for me. And I feel like if He's on my side, then I don't really give a damn what anybody else says.
She gives me so much love that no, my mom didn't even give me that much love. You know, she didn't give me love at all. So I get that from Lashane, and it just feels so good because I see her giving my daughter love, you know, and it feels good because, you know, I never experienced that. So when I see that with my wife and my daughter, you know, laughing, kissing each other, hugging, you know, you want to come home. You want to be able to, you know, to just, you know, come home to your family. So it's just it's a blessing to have a healthy relationship.
And the same for me. It's been since I didn't have my dad around. Seeing him, the father that he is to our daughter, and what joy and what pride he takes in wanting to be there, it helps me to see what I missed out on, and it makes me happy though at the same time that what a wonderful man that I married and how amazing he is, and how my daughter, the little girl that I love so much, that her daddy's taking care of her as well, and you know she won't have to experience the lack of not having a father like I did, and the way that Mike is just so loving to her and to me, and just the way that that he's shown me that he wants to fight for me, he wants to fight for our relationship, and when I want to give up, I see the way that he fights for our relationship, and makes me want to fight, and he really encourages me when I'm down. I have him to call on and to support me in that way, and he's not, and it's not like he's trying to fix all my problems either. Like in my past relationships and my past experiences and our past experiences, I looked to him to solve all my problems and to meet all my needs, and now he's like he's a support for me instead of trying to be my savior, and I feel respected because he doesn't say that he has all the answers. He says, I don't know, babe, like let's pray about it. I'm gonna pray about it for you, and he listens to my heart, and I can be vulnerable and open with him, and I can tell him anything, and he's there to listen and to support me, and it's just so amazing, and I can tell him no, and I can voice my opinion, and I go a little too extreme sometimes, but he puts up with me, and is honest with me, and says, hey, he can call me out, and we can be accountable to each other. We have an honest relationship that's in reality, and just things have extremely changed dramatically in both of our lives, and our relationship that we had started 5 years ago. We're not the same people. It's not the same relationship. It's kind of crazy telling the story of when we first met, because things are so different now, and it's just so freeing. We both want to fight for the relationship. We want to be in the relationship, and you know, we both included that in our vows that we were gonna fight until the end, and marriage is definitely something that you have to fight for. It's not easy. It's actually more work than I ever thought it would be, and yet it's so fulfilling, and I never felt so safe and so comforted ever in my life, and I just love this man dearly, and I'm glad that we've put in the work that we've put in, and that we continue to put in work. It takes work to have a good marriage, and we're both willing to do that, and it's just been such a blessing to the both of us.
you know, there's times where like, oh man, it's so hard, but it's worth it. I love you.
With the help of God, like I just see things differently, and you know, I'm not dating willingly. I'm not, you know, I'm choosing not to date, you know, getting to know who I am, building my relationship with my daughter, and serving God. And, you know, that's crazy because I would have never thought that that I was capable of doing something like this, you know. But it's, you know, it's a big growth spurt for me, and I'm really glad to be where I'm at, and I'm learning new things, and I'm really excited, you know, that whenever I am ready to date, that I'm going to have, you know, healthy habits, and I'm going to be better prepared for that. So, you know, I'm truly blessed in being where I am now, you know, thanks to God. So, yeah, that's kind of what I got. I think that's it.